Welcome, listeners, to the Grande Bouffe, the Big Feast, where we copiously consume international politics and culture through the prism of a different film and a single craft beer each week. This year, and this week, and this day, we will not be imbibing because we have Mr. Rick Crom with us, who is a teetotaler. But if you don't know who Rick Crom is, I highly recommend that you see this wonderful documentary called Oh, Rick. Welcome, Rick.
Thank you so very much. Thanks for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you.
I hate to be the guy who doesn't party along with you.
That's okay.
But bad things will happen.
You have your coffee, so
I have my coffee.
You're caffeinated.
I'm caffeinated, and I just have a little half and half and a little Adderall in there, and I'm fine.
They're very good, and beautiful lime colored shirt.
Oh, is that what this? Yes.
Appropriate for the weather. All the cherry blossoms are in bloom on Park Avenue.
Exactly. We had 2 days ago. It was the middle of winter,
right?
And now it's summer.
Yeah,
that's how we have it here in New York. There's no spring anymore.
No, sadly.
No, it's just cold allergies.
So we have a lot of ground to cover.
Oh, we do,
because we're gonna talk about Young Frankenstein.
Oh yes, I love that movie.
It's my favorite. We were just discussing how I had first seen it because I was born in '63, and I saw it when I was 11. And my buddy and I somehow was rated PG, but we snuck in, somehow got into the Biograph Cinema on Gray Street in Richmond, Virginia. And I shortly thereafter dragged my parents to the movie, and I was a little concerned because there is some bawdiness, there's some naughtiness.
Yeah.
And
when you're 12 years old,
and yeah, and fortunately, my parents didn't mind. They laughed right along with me.
Oh well, let's see. I was born in '57.
Okay.
So I guess what was I in? Anyway.
Yeah.
I was already kind of an adult, but I grew up on. I don't know if they did this when you were a kid, but they would show all of the old horror movies on TV.
Sure.
It would every Friday night. Did you guys have creature features? There was always a syndicated, like a local show, Svengoolie and all of those. There'd be a local DJ, not a local DJ, but a local VJ, if you will.
Yeah.
And
every Friday night. At midnight.
Earlier than that.
We had the Bowman Body in Richmond.
Okay, so you had something like that.
Yeah, and he would climb out of a coffin, and he was hilarious.
Yes.
And he wore tennis shoes.
Uh-huh.
And he would introduce the movie, and he would diss the movie a little if it was very schlocky. He would warn you that it was going to be schlocky and great, and you loved it.
Yeah, we had Jerry G. Bishop in Chicago.
Okay.
Where I'm from, and he would do Sven Gulli.
Okay.
And the same exact thing. It's like all of those local shows, like the Bozo shows. Did you have a Bozo show?
Of course.
Well, our Bozo was Bob Bell from Chicago. So.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So, but that's where they would show these 1930s classic Frankenstein films and Dracula and all of that stuff. And when Mel Brooks did Young Frankenstein, the parody, it is so almost shot for shot, things that are directly out of the movie.
Sure.
And
he got the real props.
Did he?
Yeah, he somehow got the props from James Whale's film. So the props that you see when they're doing all the lab stuff, those are the original props.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That they still had them around. First of all,
somehow they had stored them, and Mel Brooks was keen enough to say, "Hey, I know, I'll use those." He gives so many great homages to the original film. Of course, there's the Gene Hackman who's not credited in the credits. Gene Hackman as the old blind guy living in the cabin
with the soup.
Yes, with the
soup. Let me give you some soup. And Peter Boyle as the monster. I think the funniest thing. Well, there's so many shots, but do you remember when they do the parody of the little girl in the well?
Yes.
And he does the take to the camera?
Yes.
What shall we throw in the well next?
Right. No, well,
he looks at the camera.
Yeah, well, there's so much fourth wall breaking stuff that, and of course, it's Igor who does most of it.
No, it's Igor, isn't it?
It is. Oh, yes, Igor.
They told me it was Igor. Well, they were wrong then, weren't they?
And I think that Brooks also devises all these ways to make it musical. There's all the singing that happens throughout the film. So it's a very musical movie. You know, I guess you would call it a spoof.
Well, you've got Madeline Kahn.
Right.
How do you not do My Sweet Mystery of Life?
Right.
The musical joke that knocks me out every time, and I'm usually the only one in the theater or on the couch laughing. They're on the roof, playing the violin, trying to lure the monster back.
Sure, he's climbing up the side of the tower.
Right, and Marty Feldman is sitting there with a French horn, music stands, and he's counting measures.
Oh.
You see him count. This is a musician joke,
right?
But he's counting measures, and he just comes in for two notes, and then he rests. And it's as a musician, it's one of the funniest goddamn things I've ever seen in my life.
It's great.
But people go, "Why are you laughing?" It's a musician joke. You just have to know it.
Well, that's the thing. Brooks is combining these influences from vaudeville. And from stand-up and slapstick, he's combining all of these different comic forms and putting them all together in this beautiful black and white homage. And I love the fact that the movie's in black and white.
It has to be in black and white.
It does.
You can't not do it in black and white.
Absolutely.
And as I understand it, Gene Wilder wrote a lot of the script.
Yeah,
actually wrote.
Well, he was the one who convinced Brooks to do the Ritz performance.
Yes. That one.
That's the one. Yeah, and Peter Boyle is just so great because I mean obviously they had written it that way, but his delivery of the crazy cat voice. You know, you're really convinced that this guy has no ear at all.
Well, he's a monster. What do you want? He just learned to walk again.
Yeah, and also he's a tall guy. He was 6'2", so he was a good casting choice to begin with because he was already tall.
And then with platform shoes and all of that. Did you see the musical? They did the Broadway musical version of it.
I did not. Did you see it?
I did, and it was a big flop. But
oh no.
Yeah, it was, and I've done a lot of Broadway and things like that. I happen to like it. I think I'm one of the only theater people who I thought it was hilarious because I was accepting it on its own terms.
Right.
It's a silly movie.
Yeah.
A silly homage to these things. And Andrea Martin was in it, and she sang the song, "He Was My Boyfriend." And it was, I loved it. I loved the whole thing, but I think it closed in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's sad.
People are like, oh, it's not next to normal. Well, no, it's not. It's young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah.
But I kept thinking, because Mel Brooks decided, well, it had such a hit with the producers.
Right.
I'll produce this.
Sure.
And I kept hearing Zero Mostel going, "Don't put your own money in the show."
Oh, my goodness.
And he did. He put his own money in the show.
Ay.
No, he had some money to burn, but
yeah.
I think he lost.
I was looking at IMDb about the cast to see which cast members are still alive. Do you have any idea which one is still going?
Cloris Leachman.
That's right.
And I believe Terry Garr is still alive.
No, sadly, no.
No, I know she had MS.
Yeah, MS finally took her.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I would have sent a card.
They didn't give me one either.
What? When did she die?
A few years ago.
Huh.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful YouTube video of Terry Garr a few years ago, not that long ago.
Yeah.
And she already had the MS, but she was just speaking frankly. And,
right.
And she did not care for Gene Wilder. She was like, he was a bit of a jerk.
Oh.
She talks about him.
Really?
Yeah, kind of a jerk.
Huh. I'm surprised.
But she's Terry Garr, so she can.
Well, she's so beautiful. She's so lovely in the film, and there's a dress that she wears toward the end when Madeline Kahn's character arrives, and it's kind of shocking to me that Mel Brooks squandered that dress, because I would have tried to get a little more light on that dress. She's wearing an amazing garment. Whoever the costume designer was for the film really went crazy, because the costumes that the women are wearing are great.
Well, I would like to compare that to, go back and look at the original and see what the costumes were. How many female characters were they in the original Frankenstein?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Not many.
No,
not many.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing, getting Terry Garr and Madeline Kahn together.
Oh my God, what a combination!
So I want to talk about.
He must have an enormous Schwanzstücke. The lines. Do you know that moment? Cloris Leachman, she's going up the stairs as Frau Brucker, and she says, "Just stay close to the candles. The stairway can be treacherous." And it's not mentioned, but the candles aren't lit.
Oh.
And it started dawning on me as it's going up. It's one of those rolling laughters in the theater where people, the stairway can be treacherous. They're not lit at all. Just stay close to them, though.
When Igor tells Gene Wilder, walk this way, and he copies him with the cane. He emulates his terrible walk, the hump that moves back and forth. There's just so many things. Every scene has all sorts of unpredictable things, but Brooks also just keeps repeating stuff and bringing it back, and so it just keeps getting a laugh every time.
I think it's wonderfully structured, and
it really is.
That might be Gene Wilder's influence, because this is the only script that I know of where Brooks collaborated with somebody else.
I see.
And that the structure may have been the product of two minds working together. Because some of his other things are just Mel Brooks, who I love, but some of them are just shticky, like Spaceballs or whatever. Like I don't even know what's going on in that film. I mean, I love the sight gags.
Sure.
but so I think that's one of the reasons it's so good. Is it's so well structured.
Well, you teach comedy.
Yes, I do.
You teach stand-up comedy at the Comedy Cellar here in Manhattan. Is it on McDougal Street?
The original Comedy Cellar is on McDougal Street, 117 McDougal Street, and we also have another room, two rooms actually, around the corner at the Village Underground, Fat Black Pussycat Bar, which is a much larger room. The Comedy Cellar at the Village Underground at 130 West 3rd Street, right across from the Blue Note. And then upstairs we have a little lounge that used to be our karaoke room, doing comedy up there too. Experimental things, and people who are doing Netflix specials will often run their sets up there for a week.
And you've taught there for a long time.
Well, I've been with the Comedy Cellar since 1984.
Right.
As in one capacity or another. when I haven't gone off and done other performance things. But I've been teaching there. I brought you remember the recession of 2008? Remember that?
I'm still still trying to dig out of that myself.
Yeah, that's why I lost my first retirement on that one. So
yeah.
But I was teaching a course called Stand-Up Comedy for Actors at the New York Conservatory for Dramatic Arts, and had been doing that for a couple of years. And then in 2010, I brought it to the cellar. I said, can I need to do something, and can I do this course? It's a fairly comprehensive, legitimate course. And they said, sure. So we've been very successful there now since 2010.
And how many days a week? Is it Sundays that you teach there?
Well, I teach every semester. We have about 6 classes going. So I'll teach at the cellar on Saturday and Sunday. Then I also have a Wednesday and Thursday night class that I teach up at NYCDA, still under the Comedy Cellar Classes umbrella. And then I have another teacher, Veronica Mosey, a fine comedian, who teaches on Mondays and Tuesdays. So we've had quite a success because we do a limited class size, and we do 2 showcases, and it's. I decided if I was going to do this, if I was going to teach stand-up comedy, it should be something legitimate, because it's frowned upon in the comedy community, as you probably know. You can't teach stand-up. How can you teach it? It's just a rip-off. And no. I teach structure and writing, technique, as well as performance technique, and we're very proud of the product we have. I don't call it, but I get emotionally involved with it.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Which makes me, I think, a better teacher than somebody who is maybe a great comic, famous comic, but doesn't have the patience. Teaching is a whole other skill.
Yeah.
So we do about 4 or 5 semesters a year.
Oh, interesting.
We'll do 5 classes, classroom classes, then do a show. Video that, come back to a 6th classroom, review that, make adjustments and things that you can only do by seeing the performance.
Sure.
Then get a second crack at it the week after that. So
that's great.
It's quite a comprehensive course, and we're very proud of it.
I wonder what young comics you like these days.
Young comics?
Yeah, young up and coming comics, or people that are
there are now
starting to bloom.
Yeah, there are now 15 million comedians.
There's so many.
I mean, when I first started, there were
10,
maybe 1,500 comedians in the whole country.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. Now there's 1,500 on this block.
Wow.
Yeah. But there are so many good new ones who you haven't heard of yet necessarily.
Sure.
Charles McBee is a young fella who is he works at Gotham and he writes for MTV, and he started with me 2007 when he was a student at the school.
I see.
But now he's making a living doing stand-up comedy. He's
Terrific.
very good. But the people who I'm very let's see, who do I like? You mean people who are famous now, or?
Yeah, I mean, they have.
I could say John Mulaney, but those guys I would call them pros because they're all in it over 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, they have on Netflix now that they have the stand-ups, the series, and I've been introduced to a lot of comics through that venue. Mm-hmm. This woman, Beth Stelling, I don't know if you know about her.
I don't know her,
but
again, me not knowing them, means nothing because there are so many that I don't get a chance to catch up with.
So I try and look at something like the stand-ups on Netflix, and I say, well, out of these 7 or 8 people that they're showcasing, which one do I think is the funniest? Which one do I think is really great?
Yeah, I should have done some research and brought in some names because
that's
I forget names very easily. Jason Scoop is a funny young impressionist who's out there now. Mm-hmm. And then the people at the cellar who I know, who are just a regular comics who aren't famous but have been around for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk about your movie some.
Oh yes,
because I was honored to be able to watch it. I know that it showed it at IFC for a while. It's called Oh Rick, and if you haven't seen it, listeners, you must see this movie. It's such a funny movie, and it's a great introduction to who Rick is and his career, how he came from Chicago and is a composer and a very gifted pianist and comedian, and how his career has gone, and the comedians that have interacted with him, and of course, famous New York legend in the comic circle as a comics comic, if you will.
Well, aren't you nice to say such nice things about me? A few years ago, one of my former students, who's also a filmmaker and he worked for MTV and a lot of other places, decided that I would be a good subject for a documentary. I said, why? I said, why? Why me? Why? And he started pointing out because I don't like really talking about myself, but I have done a lot of different things in this business successfully, not to the point of stardom, as one would call, money and fame.
Right.
But I have worked on Broadway. I've done film and TV.
You wrote for Urinetown?
I didn't write for Urinetown.
Oh, you were in Urinetown.
I was in
Sorry.
Urinetown.
You were in Urinetown.
I was in the original.
You did 4 years for that, didn't you?
I did the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, we started off Broadway, and then we did 3 years on Broadway. Yeah.
So what was it? What was it like doing that show for 4 years? Were you exhausted when it was over?
It was a very exhausting show. We were already in our 40s, most of us, who were playing the ensemble, and it was a very physical show. We had to dance badly, which was good because we danced badly. But we were running all over the theater, all up and down. This is the old Henry Miller Theater on 43rd Street, which they've now demolished and kept the facade, moved it over, and then they built the Stephen Sondheim Theater underneath it. So yeah, but there was a very physical show, and whenever you're doing a long Broadway show, you have to pace yourself, and I was in great shape for somebody who was like 44 at the time.
How do you keep from burning out?
The check. I mean, honestly, you have to pace yourself. People, I say this to my students a lot too, because what if you have to, what if I'm tired of the material and I just can't feel it anymore? I say, well, act. Mm-hmm. This is acting.
Yeah.
There are, I'll be in a Broadway show like Urinetown for 3 years and doing the same material over 1,000 times, and it has to be dead on every time. What do? I act.
Right.
I act. This is what I try to teach comedians. It's, you don't just tell jokes, you relive them, and you've got to bring the emotion every time. That's acting.
You've got to hit your beats.
Right. Now, you might not feel it every night. There's no way to feel it 8 times a week.
Right.
But you better look like you feel it.
Right.
And you can do that.
Sure.
You can do that. Certainly you get bored. And if you have another job, then maybe you go off and do that. But I'm not the type to leave a Broadway show unless I've got a bigger job waiting for me somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but there's you've done a lot of composing. Can you talk about your compositions?
I write. I'm known for writing songs about famous people, things of the news, current trends. I started writing musical reviews in the late 70s and 80s here in New York, and I had several little off-Broadway reviews, character studies, sometimes topical, sometimes not. And then I started writing for the Crystal Palace out in Aspen, which is not there anymore. But since 1957, they would do shows about famous people, things of the news, current trends. And I currently have an off-Broadway show running that I write for called Musical the Musical, which is on, and it's been running for, 7 years now.
Wow.
7 or 8 years.
Wow.
This particular production, and it's at the Kirk Theater on 42nd Street and Theater Row. And again, songs about famous people, things in the news, current trends, and sketches. This is probably the 4th production of Musical that has been running, but this is the longest running production of it. And I try to keep it updated. There are currently other people contributing to the show. I used to write the whole thing myself, but it's exhausting.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
But yeah, I try to keep the musical comedy flair, the Broadway style. It's not rock and roll, it's musical comedy. And then I have written other straight theatrical pieces. Like I wrote a show. Here's a funny story. I wrote a show with Hunter Foster, Sutton Foster's brother, and we did Urinetown together. And we wrote our own version of the Bonnie and Clyde story, but a musical comedy version of the telling of it. There's a festival every year where they come out and they tell the story of Bonnie and Clyde. So we decided that we would do the musical comedy version of that. And we wrote it, and it was very well received down in Atlanta, where we premiered it. But then Frank Wildhorn, this is covered in the movie. Frank Wildhorn, two of the most feared words in musical theater. Frank Wildhorn came up with his own version of it, so which didn't do so well. So now that's. Our version is currently in a drawer somewhere, but we'll try to get it produced down the line. It's a very good show.
Uh-huh.
So that's the kind of things I've been writing. So, and sometimes I have a lot of very fruitful years where I write a lot of material song-wise, and sometimes I don't.
Right. Well, now what's happening with your movie with Oh Rick?
Well, we did very well at the Doc NYC Festival, and we won the audience award, and got another screening there. It just premiered out in LA as part of the another festival out there. I can't remember the name of it, and was soon to be in the Soho Film Festival. That's breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if I'm supposed to announce that yet.
Excellent.
But so with any film, we are of this nature. There's a lot of licensing that goes into it. The film is about me and the Comedy Cellar, but there's a lot of very famous people who we are talking to about and with, and we show clips that are licensed by other people. Mm-hmm. So we need to raise a lot of money in terms of licensing those clips.
I see.
So in that effort, we're beginning our GoFundMe. What do they call it? It's the
Kickstarter, GoFundMe.
It is a GoFundMe.
Mm-hmm.
They call it crowdsourcing now.
That's
crowdsourcing. Crowdsourcing.
Lovely.
I just called it begging, but
yes.
Crowdsourcing.
Yes.
So we're doing a thing that is launching that on May. It's being here. I have it right in front of me. I want to get it correctly. On May 15th, which is a Tuesday night, I'm doing a show at the Village Underground Comedy Cellar, Rick Crom and Friends. And we have Tom Papa and Judy Gold and Modi and Charles McBee and a lot of other guests. And we're going to kick off our GoFundMe efforts, which is
terrific.
And, with the show.
Right.
And then we're going to put it, I think it starts on the 10th. On the 10th of May, it goes GoFundMe.com/ORick. And it tells you all about that. Or just go to orick.com.
That's O-H.
O-H. There's no apostrophe or exclamation point, just Ulrich.
Orick.com.
So that's where it is now. And we're doing festivals. That's where we are now, and we're being accepted to a lot of them. So it's around the country.
Yeah.
And eventually, hopefully, we'll sell it to Netflix.
Absolutely.
Or Amazon. You think it'll be good or not? You've seen it now. You think it'll be good on Netflix?
I think it would be terrific on Netflix. I would watch it again right this minute if it were on Netflix.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not real famous.
Yeah.
And so if you go to see, well, who's this Rick Crom guy? But I think it's...
Well, there is the famous your appearance on Louis.
On Louis, yes.
Which a lot of people have seen.
That's a very famous scene. Yeah.
And I dialed up your name on YouTube, and that was my introduction. Mm-hmm. And I have to say that is a priceless clip.
Thank you.
It's priceless. It's really great. And I love the little history lesson that you give. It's especially touching.
You want to know how that happened? Because most of what we discuss in that film are actual discussions we had at the Comedy Cellar table with Louis and everybody. And Louis used to think it was funny that all these comics would ask me all the gay stuff, and I would just tell them in a very matter-of-fact way, and then they would squeal like 12-year-old girls. So he wanted to capture that, but also the subjects that we talk about. I saw him when they were shooting the first season, and he said, "Hey, tell me those stories again." Mm-hmm. And I did, and He said, I think I want to use those in the show. Would you mind playing yourself? And I said, well, sure, I'll play myself, basically. And then he embellished it a little bit. He added things about what it is like, being gay and being called the faggot word and stuff like that. And that never happened to me.
Uh-huh.
But he put it in there as a point of reference and created a lovely scene.
It's a beautiful scene. It really is.
Yeah, and then we shot it, and I said to Louis while we were doing it, I said, this has never been spoken about on TV before.
Yeah.
And it really put the show on the map. That's what Louis told me. I'm not taking any credit for Louis' success.
Uh-huh.
But a fun fact is that scene was going to be later in the series.
Uh-huh.
Like episode 8.
I see.
Because it was such a powerful scene, FX, I am told by Louis, that they said, listen, we think this should be in the first scene of the second episode after the pilot.
Wow.
And apparently it was a little more graphic language-wise.
I see.
So they asked him to tone it down a little bit.
Right.
So they could build an audience,
Sure.
which he did. And that's how that became this, like the pilot scene of the second episode. Not the pilot scene, not after the pilot, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
It became the first scene after the pilot.
Uh-huh.
And it was a powerful punch. And people are still, to this day, now what was that, years ago now? 9 years ago?
Yeah, it's been a while.
To this day, people come up to me and say, that scene.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, well, it's haunting. And it's very informative, too. I did not know the etymology of the word faggot.
Yeah, well, it's an urban legend that is the etymology of it.
I see.
That's what I had been told. It's a story that was going around.
Mm-hmm.
So when that scene came out, etymologists came out going, no, that's not the origin of the word, but nobody really knows.
Sure.
They were attributing it to different languages and things like that. But it doesn't really matter, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It
doesn't. Because it's representative of a social moray of how people were and still are, sadly.
But not as much as...
Not anywhere near as much. Anywhere near as much.
In the film, I talk about how I hadn't been performing at the Comedy Cellar for several years. Kind of took a hiatus. But I'm back now. I'm proud to announce. I'm back now. But I'm doing openly gay material, which the audience used to recoil from. Mm-hmm. Now, they love it. They can't get enough of it. And it's not silly, where the punchline is, oh, and I'm gay, la, la, la. It's not that. It's all about being an older guy and, trying to stay relevant. And the audience buys it, and they don't recoil from it. And that's something that's brand new. I'd say that's over the last couple of years.
Very recent. There's so many changes that are going on, and I like that you're such a Chicago comic, and also a New York comic, and so
I've been here longer than I was there. So.
Yeah, and so everybody. I lived in San Francisco for 12 years, and obviously there's San Francisco is a small town, even though it wants to pretend like it's a big town. I think there's only about 850,000 people really in San Francisco proper, and everything shuts down at 10 p.m. in San Francisco. New York's a very different place.
Oh yeah,
and so
we don't go out till 10.
Exactly.
It's like, what's happening? It's only 10 o'clock. Nothing's happening.
It's a whole different. It's a whole.
Were you
different,
around?
It's a whole different vibe.
You were around when there were the after hours clubs, and you'd be at the bar till like 4, and then you're like, well, who else? Who's after hours? And then you'd get up, and you'd be going home, and the sun would be coming up, and commuters would be going to work, and they would look at you, and they could somehow tell that you'd been out all night. Oh, those were the days.
So I want to dig a little deeper just into your approach to comedy, because you have such a musicality about you. Obviously, you come from a musical background, and you as you say in your documentary, don't ever become a really good MC, because you'll never do anything else.
Well, That is kind of true. I mean, it's good MCs are hard to find.
Yeah.
It's a little trap because as an MC, you get more stage time. And that's what you want when you first start. You want stage time.
Yeah.
But if you learn how to work the room as an MC, which I did see, I thought it's my show and I have special guests.
Right.
But that's what they want you to do.
Yeah.
They want you to MC all the time. And I think there's a happy medium. You don't have to be bad at it.
Yeah.
But don't be great at it.
So you don't do much emceeing these days?
I don't. I will.
Uh-huh.
But I'll MC my student shows and things like that. But,
sure.
But fortunately, they're just hiring me for spots now. But,
I see.
What's the point I was trying to make? But there's a certain complacency that can happen. It's like, oh, I'm the MC,
right?
So, which means you're working twice as hard as everybody else, by the way. But there's a security, there's a sense, and I think I fell into that. And emceeing at the Comedy Cellar for 15 years or whatever it was.
And you got the piano right there.
And the piano, well, that's another part of my act. That's because I'm like a variety show.
Yeah,
It's like I'm talking. Hey, let's go over here and do a silly song. And I would do a silly song that I had written. A comedy song full of jokes.
Right.
Not parodies. I don't do parodies. I write my own music. And and it would be different than just a guy standing and talking, which I thought was a great way to break up the show. Here's one monologist and now another monologist. Oh, here's a silly song. And now the audience is ready for another monologist and another monologist.
So when you say you don't do parodies, you don't do jokey takes on a song that somebody else already wrote. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. I don't parody songs that are already written.
Yeah.
There are a lot of shows that do that.
Right.
And some of them are brilliant. Like Forbidden Broadway is wonderful. Gerard Alessandrini, a terrific lyricist. But these are songs that are parodies set to other people's music.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but that's not what I do. I don't want to do that. And that can be kind of easy sometimes in a comedy field. Mm-hmm. See, everything I do or did or I'm going to do, it was always kind of at odds with pure stand-up.
Right.
Like, you're not supposed to be doing songs in a comedy club. You're not supposed to be doing impressions like that. Because when I started, Rich Little and David Fry and people like that, impressionists, variety artists on a show like The Tonight Show in 73, 74, they were there all the time. So there were monologists, and then there were people who did kind of a variety thing. I wanted to be a variety guy. By the time I started doing stand-up and got to New York, that was now frowned upon. No. None of that. Just stand up and do jokes.
It's funny how things change like that and really do a disservice to the art.
Yeah. And I think that's died out now because you take a look at somebody like Bo Burnham who comes out and does musical comedy.
Right.
And the kids are like, they're flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's something other than jokes.
Yeah.
As I say, I think more is more. But
so what do you think about in the good old days? Of course, you could go on Johnny Carson and you'd be made.
That is weird. Yes.
That would just be
my first guess.
Weird.
I did not know that. It's a dead on Carson, and nobody gives a fuck.
But we don't have Carson anymore.
We do not have Carson.
Or Letterman or that star system.
Now, you remember when Letterman started, he was not as gracious as he wound up being as he got older. He was a bit of a prick.
Yeah, he was known for being really snotty.
Yeah.
And if he didn't like you, that was it. He would toast you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there were a lot of stories about people that had bad experiences on that show.
Yeah. Especially early on.
Yeah.
Well, that was the purist thing.
Uh-huh.
Where if a guy comes out and he starts doing voices and whatever, it's like, no, we don't do that. You're out of here.
Yeah, isn't that odd?
You can do that now, though.
You can do it now, but isn't it odd that for so long there would just be this king who would give you the ring or not.
Yeah. Well, I think it's when that changed with Letterman and all that stuff. It's because they couldn't do it. Right? They didn't want to do it, but also this is true. There were a lot of people getting by, making a living doing really hacky comedy because all they had to do was come out with a guitar and sing different words to Gilligan's Island, and put like, can you be dirty on the show?
Yes.
Yeah, so you say, come sit right down here, the tail of my big rock dick, and the audience would laugh because it's a juxtaposition. We don't expect that. It's a substitution, which is a very common comedy form.
Yeah,
substitution.
Very broad comedy.
Right. So there were people getting huge laughs doing shticky stuff, and the intellectual comics were like, this is hacky. This is not legitimate.
Right.
So yeah, you can understand that. Their disdain for it. So when I started doing my stuff, I started as a guitar act too, but when I started doing my stuff with the piano, I wanted it to be original and be jokes. I just do jokes that rhyme. Basically,
Sure.
Joke structure. So hopefully what I was doing was more original and not hacky.
Right.
But a lot of people say, "Oh, he's hiding behind that piano," and things like that. No, I don't need to do that.
No, of course not.
I'll go up there and talk for 20 minutes and not do one musical thing.
Yeah.
I can do it sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I used to be drinking, I might say to somebody who's like, "Oh, that piano," they're like, "Hey, listen, I can do what you do. You can't do what I do."
Right. Right.
And then I'd have another drink, curse them out.
So what hits your funny bone these days? What really makes you crack up? Just in life. What do you find to be endlessly funny in life?
That's not a general question, is it?
No, it's not general at all. Now, is it? I find British accents to always be a bit funny.
No. Is it? I'll tell you how to say hello in British. Repeat after me. Air.
Air.
Hair.
Hair.
Lair.
Lair.
Now, all together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Air,
Hair,
hair, lair. Isn't that stupid?
See, this is what I'm talking about. Silly shit.
Silly
stuff that just, it just never gets old.
Things that are just silly.
Yeah.
Make me laugh. And I know they're silly.
Yeah.
And I might not present them in front of a professional audience.
Exactly.
But they make me laugh.
Yeah.
Do you know I've been watching the last week? I've been on YouTube. Watching all of the Martin and Lewis Colgate comedy hours.
Oh, wow.
I've seen some of their stuff before.
Yeah.
It is so funny. And so stupid.
Yeah.
It just makes me laugh.
Never gets old. Well, who's the guy? Is it Kenneth Mars who plays in Young Frankenstein? And evidently, I guess the story is that Brooks gave him the script, and Mars just came up with all this stuff that he was going to have this ridiculous German accent and the thing with the arm that goes up and down.
And the darts in the arm.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. Yeah, the darts in the arm. It's a running gag because he has Gene Wilder with the scalpel in the leg that opens the movie. I mean, it's pure slapstick. And it's hilarious.
Whenever I find those stupid little jokes, I always tell the audience, and they groan, and then they laugh.
Yeah.
It's so stupid.
Yeah.
I tell this joke, and all right, 2 little cows are talking to each other, and the one cow says, "Gee, you think I want to end up as a leather jacket?" The other cow thinks and says, "I could be suede." Leather, suede. It's a fabric joke.
Nice.
That's just stupid.
Yeah.
I do like watching that stuff. That makes me laugh because it's just so pure and silly. What makes me laugh in general? Politics doesn't make me laugh anymore.
Yeah, no, politics is gone. It's really dried up. I think it's very telling the way that Michelle Wolf was treated.
Yes.
I thought she was great. I thought she was really funny.
Yeah.
I thought she was really bringing it.
She was bringing it, and that's a weird event anyway.
Yeah.
I was just looking at Al Franken's. He hosted it twice.
I see.
His 1996 one where he hosted it, and he was more formal, stayed within the parameters of respecting the formal event, but still took shots within that event. And I think that's what they want. They want somebody who's going to respect them and not blow the place up.
Yeah.
Like the Oscars are the same way. They don't want you to comment. They want you to be, these great movie stars, and they want you to kiss their ass a little.
Yeah.
I mean, they were not expecting Michelle Wolf. That's
no,
for sure.
I thought she was really spot on with her irreverence, because I think that being irreverent is it's part and parcel to comedy.
It is, and Lawrence O'Donnell said something interesting, saying that that event was climbing all over themselves to get show business inside. All these show business names to come in, and then they are shocked when show business doesn't conform to what they want. Right. When show business breaks the rules.
Yeah. It's not a corporate gig being a stand-up.
No, Michelle actually said, you should have researched me before you hired me. She said that right in the middle of it.
Yes.
Go back. You should have done more research on me before you hired me. And then considered. Oh my God. I sat there and I was watching it. I was watching the playback on my phone, and I would actually have to stop and go, "Whoa!"
Yeah, yeah. Well, she's just
get a drink of water. What else did she say?
She's chewing it up. You can tell she likes the taste in her mouth. She's chewing it.
Yeah, I saw her do some of that. She's running those jokes at the Cellar all week long beforehand.
Oh, okay.
So I heard some of them. I hadn't heard all of them.
Yeah.
Woo!
It's hot in here.
Yeah,
I respect that. I love it, and I just think that she's got a show that's coming up on Netflix. Can you remember?
Exactly. She wasn't playing to that room. She was playing to the Netflix people.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if Joan Rivers was still alive? What she would do with these people?
Oh boy.
Of course, she was kind of a Trumpy anyway. But still.
But still.
What she would do to Sarah Huckabee Sanders?
Yeah.
I have a Sarah Huckabee Sanders song and musical, by the way.
Oh, interesting. Can we hear a few bars?
No.
Okay.
I don't remember it.
Oh, well, I have to ask. It's fine that you can't remember it.
The first thing is, it's like a pageant song. Two guys come out, there isn't any question that she's lovely.
Okay, gotcha.
That kind of thing.
That's the setup, yeah.
We're in love with Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Uh-huh.
How we love to hear that. Our Sarah droned in that sexy, sultry monotone. That kind of thing. And then she comes out.
Well, she looks like such a cartoon character to begin with. I mean, I know that everyone's like about the, not about the looks. Don't talk about the looks. We don't want to hear that. But, she's got a cartoon look to her. I can't help it. I didn't make her that way.
And don't you just wonder sometimes with Sarah that you think, here you were raised to be a good Christian girl.
Right.
And you're up there, and you are just being a pit bull for the president, and she's doing a great job,
right?
But my God,
yeah,
she's just lying for Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually in the song. She's just lying because Jesus wants her to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But my God,
or Jesus, as he's called in some places.
Well, just in the kitchen. Get back in the kitchen. Hey, see, now that's the kind of joke I like. Jesus is here. Get back in the kitchen. Hey, wait a minute. Bill Grunfest and I, who's featured in the film, who started the Comedy Cellar, he and I used to do a team act when we were hosting together, and it was very much like that.
Yeah,
very back. You can't say such a thing.
Yeah,
he'd start off. I was watching The Wizard of Oz, and I go, a dirty movie. What do you mean it was a dirty movie? It was a dirty movie. That's not a dirty movie. Oh, yeah, there are things in that movie that children shouldn't see. Things like what? I mean, the Tin actually says to Dorothy, he says, well, about a year ago, I was chopping down that tree, and it started to rain, and all of a sudden, in the middle of a chopway, I rusted solid. I've been stiff for a year. Come here, Dorothy. Now, he said, hey, that's not what he means. Oh, yeah, what about this? Some people do go both ways. He didn't mean both ways like that. Then what about there's a sneaking up behind me, eh? Would you cut that out? Am I bleeding? Stop it! I love shit like that.
Wow.
That's the kind of stuff we would do back and
now
forth.
I got to go back and see The Wizard of Oz again and look for all
it's a
this.
filthy movie.
It's dirty.
It's filthy.
That is just dirty.
Pardon me. Some people do, but go both ways. Who rang that bell?
I love the Groucho line. That's the dirtiest one I ever heard.
It's the dirtiest among I've ever heard.
You can apply it to anything.
I was born at a very early age. Before I could regret it, I was 4.5 years old. I was very short as a child. I couldn't understand it. I had an uncle who was well over. I can't remember now. Uncle was well over 4 feet tall. He was certainly out of feet. He was a drunk. He was a common drunk, something about lying around the house. Okay, cut this part out because I can't remember it.
It's okay. You know this guy.
Did you go through a Groucho phase? I went through
of course.
a Groucho phase.
About the same time that I was in my young Frankenstein phase. Mm-hmm. Those guys grew up about 3 blocks from here.
Did they really?
Chico, Groucho, Gummo, Harpo, and Zeppo. People have a hard time.
And Dave. Did you know there was a Dave Marks? There was not.
No, there wasn't. But yeah, they grew up on 93rd Street between Lexington and 3rd.
Oh, you would think they'd be Lower East Side fellas.
Mina Schoenberg Marks raised her 5 sons at 179 East 93rd Street.
You know too much about this.
I do.
My friend, you know too much about this.
I do. Well, it's because I give a walking tour of Carnegie Hill. So
do you? Oh, that's right. Of course
I know
you do.
these things, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. They did the Broadway musical, Minnie's Boys.
Leonard, Milton, Adolph, Julius Henry, and the other one. Those are their real names. Adolph, of course, is that's the one that didn't work out.
Well, for a while he was doing all right.
Poor Gummo.
Yeah.
And Zeppo.
Well, somebody had to do the books. I mean, come on. Not all of them are going to be funny.
They couldn't just leave that all to Mom all the time.
No.
She had to wash their clothes.
Did you ever see that clip? It's of Groucho at like 93. And it's Bill Cosby. Mm-hmm. Do you see the one where it's like a house party?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
It's a young Bill Cosby. And it's a special.
Yeah.
And Groucho, Cosby's interviewing Groucho. But there's a little person running around and dressed as Groucho.
Oh.
Just like a little... at the time they called him a midget, but it was a little person running around. And at a certain point, Groucho leans over to him and he goes, "Am I having a good time?" It's so stupid. Am I having a good time?
Well, there's another guy who he was in the game for a long time. If you can cover that many decades, I mean, that's a lot of decades. He must have covered at least 6.
Oh yeah. I'm just fascinated by that. But you think of a career these days, comedians that will they last as long as the vaudevillians and all that stuff? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe they won't. I mean, people I really love today. I love joke tellers like Jim Gaffigan. I like really well constructed jokes.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Carr and I love Anthony Jeselnik.
I binge watched all the Seinfeld getting comedians getting coffee in cars, just because it's when you put comedians in fancy cars, it's just it's a recipe for funny stuff. It's wait a minute, are you trusting this guy? You do know how much that car cost, right?
Sure.
And that's a comedian. What could go wrong?
Yeah, something tells me Jerry's got insurance.
Yeah, Jerry's fine. But it's interesting to me how he created this little series, and it's just it's blown up into this huge thing, and it's such it seems like a throwaway idea.
Well, it's kind of like this idea.
Yeah,
just two people talking.
Yeah,
and the fact that he's got famous people on.
Yeah,
and but comedy has become like a hobby for people who don't even do comedy. Comedy enthusiasts.
Sure.
They know all about. It's almost like baseball players.
Right.
They know all the stats.
Yeah.
They know how many specials this person did and that person did.
Yeah. And they can tell the jokes.
Yeah. So when Jerry comes up with a show about comedy, people just gravitate to it.
Gravitate right.
Which is why people should gravitate to O. Rick, because it's
that's right.
A lot of history about comedy and the Comedy Cellar and.
Yeah,
I'm just the linchpin, but there's a lot of information about New York comedy,
and a lot, and there's
the 80s.
and there's a scene in the Comedy Cellar where there are a lot of comedians. There's a showcase where there's a lot of old school comedians coming back.
That's right.
And paying homage and doing their shtick.
We did a reunion show.
Yeah.
Bill Grunfest and I did a reunion show where we hosted the show like we used to. And then
you got Jon Stewart on
Jon
there?
Stewart, who was a total surprise to me. I knew that, Colin Quinn was on it, and Ray Romano, Alan Havey, and Mark Cohen, and then Louis showed up. It was an incredible night.
Yeah, it's a great part of the movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really hope that Oh Rick makes it to Netflix. But listeners, please be on the lookout for Oh Rick, and I will post something on my website colesmithy.com when it gets a release of any kind.
If you will kindly put our link ohrick.com, then all the information will pop right up.
I will do that.
Because
will be there.
We'll have some more local festivals and things like that, and some screenings. We're going to be showing some clips from it on this May 15th thing at the Village Underground.
Terrific.
Tuesday.
What time is that?
10 p.m.
Excellent.
10 p.m. I don't know I think you can go to the Comedy Cellar website and make reservations, but you don't have to. Just show up. Give us money.
Well, thank you so much. It's been such an honor and a pleasure to have Mr.
My pleasure. This was
Rick
great.
Crom on the podcast. Thank you all for listening. Please remember to turn your cell phones off when you're watching comedy.
Yes.
When you're walking, driving, riding a bicycle, or watching a movie. Le Grand Bouffe, The Big Feast is a production of Smart New Media.